Hello, good afternoon. Hope you had a nice lunch and that you're all here for the CIIRT 405, Leveraging Culture and Behavior for AWP Success. We're excited to be here. My name is Fernando Espana. I'm going to go through a few slides. So if you're here to understand the most important thing about our business, which is the culture, then I think you're in the right spot. So first of all, I'm going to do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Fernando Espana. I'm with ConstructX. I've been involved with a lot of different programs, such as lean construction, production project management, or project production management, and of course AWP, which is really important to me. So what I've discovered with all of them is that, you know, the industry's culture doesn't want to move, doesn't want to change. But we need to, and all these processes are designed to support the change. So a little bit on the RT 405, it really came out of a lot of the work that we started with an AWP plus Lean joint working group. And my colleague out here, Jamie Gerbrek, was author of one of those papers, and he prompted us to not only think about culture, but actually kind of prompted the I guess development or the idea that we should be looking at as the research team. Okay, so what are we going to try to do today? I'm going to move a couple slides, then I'm going to do some more introductions. Sorry about that. Desired outcomes, we're going to review those. Lean culture and value waste, learning to see, right? So we have to be able to learn to see. We don't want to look at any of these methodologies as something we just go, there's a formula and we just have to follow it. Distributed control culture, why culture matters, survey composition, culture assessment tool, and then seeking leadership support. So first of all, with me up here on the stage, I introduce myself. I am the chair of the CII-RT 405 team, along with Francis Bindle with Chevron. We've both been very active participants in this program. And we feel very passionate about the topic itself. So I'm gonna hand this over to Haley Tao. There you go, and let her introduce herself. She's with Purdue University, and then we'll hand it over to Basad. So I'll get you.
Hello, my name is Heywan Sao. You can call me Haley. I'm a PhD student from Purdue University, major in civil engineering. I'm honored to be here to present about our ongoing research, and then I wish you could learn something and then be part of our research later on. Thank you.
Hi everyone. My name is Behzad Esmaili. I'm an associate professor at Purdue University Department of Civil Engineering. My involvement with CII was since 2011, and it's very exciting to be part of this important research group. And I would also thank our partners from Department of Psychology, Dr. Frankie Kong, and also Dante Bruni, for helping us to conduct this research study. And this was a great pleasure to work beside Fernando and Haley on this project, and we are going to share some of our findings and also process here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And just to let you know, this RT 405 team consists of a lot of different people from different industries. So, not only Chevron, but we have Hargrove, iConstruct, Technip, and quite a few. There's a big list there. So we're just not getting the perspective of just a few folks that you see up here, but quite a few concepts and ideas and thoughts were shared across many. And we did gather, collectively, like most of the research teams do, in a location where we can actually do a lot of workshops. And I think maybe Haley will talk a little bit about that. So, but one thing, and we look at the big picture of culture, and I think we all have a sense of what it is, right? And we feel that it's something that's already there, and we don't look at how we might be able to change that culture, right? What do we want to get? Where do we want it to be? right, are really critical questions that we can, not only as an industry, but as individuals, as project teams, as whatever organization you're in, is that you have a culture, and we all talk about the culture. Sometimes we say good things about it, sometimes we say bad things about it. Well, the fact is, as you saw in the earlier presentations today, with data structures and data coming at us, with processes and people getting, I love the concept that, hey, this is the project where I got to sleep well, right? We want to get to a culture where everybody does things productively and of value towards the project. Well, that takes people working together, productively. It takes organizations working together. So, what do I want to see desired outcomes out of this, right? And by the way, that QR code leads to, leads to a survey. So you'll see that often. And we're looking for people to participate in that survey about culture. How do we look at AWP, not only the practice, but how is it reflected in our culture of our organization? So, desired outcomes, appreciating, the effect of a good or bad culture will make on your organization and projects. We want you to really just gain an appreciation of there and think deeply about what's in your organizations. Changing the culture requires proactive planning and execution. It just doesn't happen, right? You actually have to put things in motion to actually make a change. Aligning cultures, leveraging a collaborative ADP program drives benefits, right? It's because you're not by yourself on any project. You're working across teams, across organizations, supply chain, right? You're actually melding a bunch of cultures at the same time. But you can create a project culture that actually is going to be productive. RT 405 is studying the connection between culture and ADP outcomes, right? So how does one lead to the other, to better benefits or not? And most of you that are ADP practitioners, can immediately recognize, especially those that are passionate about it, as to how well the team is responding or participating, right? That has culture implications. Last is gaining a better understanding of how your organizational culture, a better understanding of your organizational culture by participating in this study, right? It'll actually list a group of questions and ask for information, which you may or may not have. You say, well, why don't I have that? Or what does it mean? How do I answer these culture questions, right? It's to get you thinking about the idea that your organization can benefit from evaluating your own culture of the organization or the projects you're involved with. So when we look at the cultures, there are several to look at and to understand that they are requiring integration, right? And we have to kind of attack, I'm going to show three. First one is the organization's culture, right? If the organization is not set up, it's more transactional, not collaborative, doesn't have people, to support a process, looks more to outsource than to insource, that kind of thing, right? That's one. So what is your culture like? Is it promoting people to respond together or work together more collaboratively, or is it not, right? And that's just one example. The other part that we find, is there's a department culture. A lot of big organizations here, and there's a lot of, I'll call them fiefdoms, right? So departments, want that autonomy to do what they do, and then they control things, whether you're in engineering, whether you're in the construction side, whether you're in the procurement side, right? They each have their own culture. And I've seen this with some major, even government organizations or large owner EPC organizations, right? You go in and engineering does what they do, or construction is going to do what they do. In fact, they have different departments in construction, and they're all sort of siloed. So what does that culture look like from a department level? And of course, ideally, as we all come together, we talked about this, there's a project culture. And it's going to be built up of a lot of people coming together for the first time. And everybody's going to come into the room with their own thoughts of how that culture should behave, right? And rather than how do we design it, how do we set it up for success? And a lot of it is getting into not only how does technology support that, it was one of the early discussions had earlier, is that technology can actually drive behavior change. if we do that right, if we understand, what our end customers really need to make better, earlier decisions. So the idea that we can set up our project for success through not only the technology, but also in the contracting requirements, right? How do I want people to work together? And if it's going to be a transactional contract, you're going to get transactional results. If it's going to be a collaborative contract, you're going to get different results. But how do I get people to behave differently, right? And that just takes a little bit of education and training and hard effort. That was I think brought up in CCC's discussion here earlier, and certainly with Kevin McNally's with Exxon, right? Both mentioned heavy training requirements. Right? That's how we're going to make changes. So, when we look at the lean concepts, culture of value, waste, and learning to see, all right, that is, if we're not looking what needs to be changed or how people are really behaving or what we could do about it, we can shrug our shoulders and say that's just the way it is, right? Or we can look to organizing a program and plan to do that. So, what is the value? So when we look at, and these are, again, lean concepts, give the customer what they want, when they want it, with no waste. Big idea, right? Well, that's exactly what Toyota sought out to do, right? What do consumers really want, right? And there's lots of change. Now, yes, we're not a manufacturing industry, but everybody, who is our customer? And I know that you saw this morning with Kevin McNally. I loved how he flipped the triangle. Our customers, sometimes they are the foreman and the crew out in the field. They are sometimes the customers, and we're not just the Shells and the Exxons and the Oxys and all that, right? They're one set of customers. So what do they want, and when do they want it, and can you cut out all the waste, right? That's why IWPs are so powerful, because we can go from the very top to the very bottom and vice versa, right? The one is to focus on flow. People, we don't understand what flow is, but if we focus on how do handoffs go from one person to another so everybody can be highly productive and I can feel good about what I do and I can be rewarded for what I do, right? That's going to drive a different kind of change. Optimize the whole gets to that whole project. What does the project need? Why am I trying to optimize that, right? Because there's going to be trade-offs. And if we don't have the contracting mechanisms to do those trade-offs, right, we're going to find ourselves fighting each other all the time. Because in reality, our projects are constantly moving, they're constantly flowing, right? Things are changing, and we have to adapt to that change. Rather than fight it, we need to embrace it. And then finally, one of the big things is respect for people. There's a lot of people with brains out there. Let's leverage that, because when people feel they can participate freely, then they're willing to share and they have a different attitude towards the job. If they're always shut down, hey, you just listen to what I say, that really brings in a whole different perspective on how you're going to really encourage people to come out with good ideas, right? Sometimes it's the craziest thing. We would talk about, a whole project delivery program, and I get somebody out of finances. That doesn't make sense. And you have to look at it from a different lens. You say, well, yeah, you're right about that, right? So you never know where the good ideas are going to come from. So, and we look at the waste that goes along with that, and we see it on every job, right? We look at over and under production. A lot of people waiting. Unnecessary transportation starts happening. Over or under processing. We make not enough, make too much, and then we end up with a lot of waste. Excess inventory, right? How do we keep people from thinking, the culture has been, give me everything, I want to see it out in the field, right? I don't have this logistic strategy, right? A lot of defects, unnecessary motion, right? These are things that we need to learn to see, right? If we learn to see, we can share it with people and we can start changing behaviors, by just pointing out things and making everybody's life a little easier. Again, like what Exxon said this morning, one project where I could sleep well. And the one thing that we can look at from culture is there's the individually distributed control culture, which is chaos. Everybody just does what they want to do, right? Traffic, and a lot of you travel internationally could see this. But hey, I'm driving, I'm just going to get where I need to get to, and people are just going to move out of the way, and that's the way we're going to work. Or, of course, on the opposite side is a hierarchical distributed control, which is command and control. So I could be that you just follow the orders and we all march the same way, and you know how that works until you hit the battlefield. Then chaos breaks out. And people are starting to adapt to, hey, we can't be all on one side, we can't be all on this side. What's that right culture in the middle? So when we look at distributed control cultures, a lot of people have been working on this. Have we been working on it? And I think that's where we're going to head in the future, right? So, we came out with the PDCA cycle. You can call it the Shewart cycle or what have you, but PDCA, let's plan, do, check, act, right? So that's how we're going to drive improvement. You see that in lean circles. And we actually have that in AWP if we pay attention to what we're doing. We're always planning, then we're going to go do, then we're going to see how did we close it out, did we not close it out, how are things flowing, and then we act upon that. In the military, they have what's called the OODA loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, announce, right? Because they understood that the military, everything works great until I actually get confronted in the battlefield. Then they have to make decisions. And so it's distributed down to those field teams, right? The military folks. So yes, absolutely, someone's recognizing the fact that we have to do rapid changing of our plans when we start getting into the battlefield. In this case, projects. Then, of course, what I like is advanced work packaging. Looks at building all this in a very nice, tidy thing. We get engineering alignment, procurement alignment, and construction alignment with fabricators and everybody else, right? At least that's the ideal. But if you look at it, and I've been on enough jobs to know that doesn't work so well if you haven't been able to get your teams to work collaboratively together, right? We have it, and we say, okay, AWP. But it's a great, but then we say, well, you got to build this, and this, and then we just move on, right? There's a lot of opportunity in how we can build a better AWP culture. Some people are doing really great jobs. We can even do greater. Some people are doing a very bad job. We need to get better, right, on the implementation of advanced work packaging. And I think one thing also that we're looking at, which I think is going to drive the future here and how we drive different sort of behaviors, it's all around integrated project delivery and those collaborative contracts and the concept of it. There's a lot of people studying it, and there's going to be some discussions during this conference about I2PD, right? The industrial version of that. So that looks at, what is the culture? What is the contract? And what is that lean operating systems that's going to drive us to behave better? And once you've seen it, and a lot of you've seen, there's probably examples, we've heard up today, when you go into those job sites, in my first one with lean, it's just like the behavior is so different than what you're used to. It's strikingly different. And once you get there, you learn to see and you learn to do something about it, then I think that we'll all understand, the power of culture. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Haley. And I think we've got a video coming up next. So I'll let you go. You want me to go ahead and start it? Or you already started?
Thank you, Fernando, for the introduction. Hi. Before I begin my speech, I want to play a video.
Construction, in all its forms, is a testament to the incredible power of collaboration. Every construction project brings together a unique team of individuals with different specialties and backgrounds. Despite the diversity, these individuals share a common vision: project success. For its success, advanced work packaging has long been recognized as an effective project management practice in construction. Yet, its full potential remains intact, and a key lies in transforming culture within the AWP team. This is because organizational culture sets the tone for team alignment, dynamics, and communication. It works as an invisible engine in the project. A positive culture prevents us from relapsing into our old bad habits and harnesses the best in each individual. As projects span years, substantial effort and time are invested. Therefore, cultivating a winning culture is essential. To build a supportive culture, defining key cultural metrics and how those are intricately connected to project performance and AWP adoption is critical. Even more, it's imperative. To achieve this, CII commissioned Research Team 405 in 2002, With a clear vision, the team has dedicated a year to defining how to leverage culture and behavior for AWP success. Now, the research team is seeking for the leadership support.
It doesn't matter if you are new to AWP, we still want to hear your stories.
Join us on CII's first venture into AWP culture research.
Will you stand with us, guiding the next generation towards a brighter AWP future?
Is your team culture aligned? Or do you aspire to break down silos and make improvements? Let's address this critical question together. With you, we can build a stronger advanced work packaging project culture and future. Please scan the QR code to consent to join the survey.
Thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. So let's talk about the organizational culture. Organizational culture is a core belief which can explain why things happen the way people do. As time changes, rules evolve, preference shifts. Thus, the way people interact should be changed as well. However, fear hinders the stage. But we have to remember that fear comes from the ignorance. Thus, a clear communication, involvement, and well-devised change management plan are in need. When we talk about effectiveness, efficiency, and success, in this context, we cannot be done without considering the relationship with those who handle this aspect. So now it's time to tackle this down. When CII talks about the best practices, metrics associated with organizational culture, such as team building, alignments, are regarded as one of the key components. So in previous CII studies, did a fantastic job to define the cultural elements and cost effectiveness of this. However, it's time to delve deeper by clarifying the diversity of the culture and make it into measurable unit. So we can start with question brainstorming. First, what are the unspoken rules and norms hidden behind the surface of your project teams? Or we can ask, how does organizational culture affect your project team in a way that's not obvious? Or we can ask, what kinds of actionable insight do you want to know to improve your culture? So research team 405 spent more than 1.5 years to define these metrics. These are the 4 core factors: leadership, coordination, value, and norms. So throughout the discussion, we could make 17 sub-factors from these 4 main elements. I'm not going to read this all. If you are interested, you can scan the QR code over there and then participate in the study. So have we talked about vision casting or leadership accountability or psychological safety when we talk about the alignment? So we're on the progress of defining it, and I want you to be a part of the process. So we defined these 17 sub-factors, and we utilize the behavior and rating scale from psychology literature. It's a rating system can be used to define concrete example to anchor rating at each level. So those 17 sub-factors are assessed into 5 different levels. For example, for the leadership, in the aspect of incentiveness and award. For level 1, which is bottom, project leader incentivize people, not allowing compliance to the project, but just the way he or she desire to. And the level 5 is the project leader utilizes incentive program across entire project and regularly reward every single level to people. So, okay, we define the metrics. So now here comes the question. How are you going to measure it? How are you going to utilize it to make AWP project successful? So our answer was the correlation of cultural metrics to AWP project performance and AWP adoption. All projects measure project performance and track AWP work packages. So the rationale behind this approach is in the need for a standardized metrics when evaluating culture factor that can apply universally. So it consists of 3 pieces. First is we want project numerical data about project performance, cost, predictability, those factors. And then we want to hear about the culture feedback from you throughout the interview. And lastly, we need your help to be introduced to one of your teammates who were in the same project answered in the survey 1. We're going to ask those 17 sub-factors into survey in Likert scale to get diverse perspective of the culture and the project. We did not want to burden you, but if you want to participate, you're welcome to do survey 2 as well. So this is how survey 1 looks like. It's consisted of 68 questions derived from previous CII study, data warehouse, and COA. And there is a matrix such as predictability, quality, or personal. Sorry. And on the second survey, we ask about, as I mentioned, leadership, coordination, value, and norms. And this is how the survey looked like. It asks about how hierarchy, workflow, or network, or sequential workflow look like in your project culture. So if you participate the study, you have several advantages. First, you have a chance to do self-reflection and your team reflection. Second, you have an opportunity to resonate your voice to the industry through our research Team 405. Third, you can tremendously help us to enhance the team cultural assessment guideline and tool. And four, you can get a free Purdue mock-up. So I will hand this mic to Behzad.
Yes, thank you so much. I think I'm using this microphone. You can have it. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I would like to thank our team members, Fernando and Haley. This was a great opportunity to get involved in this project. And we have done lots of work on this project. I cannot describe it, the amount of work went through this. And the only thing that we need is your help and support to further expand this database, because this will be one of the largest database that we are collecting about performance of AWP projects and also their cultural aspects. Please be part of this study. We will share the results with members and participants, and this will have a significant impact. If you want to have an impact on AWP projects, please help us. You don't need to have AWP projects yourself. Even if you know some project managers and some of your friends who were involved in these type projects, please introduce them to us so we can contact them and collect this data. And thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We are open to your questions and discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, actually,
yes.
Yeah, one thing I did want to add, I mean, if you do go to that, that website and get the information, I think you'll find just the questions alone are going to be interesting to look at and what's being asked. And I would encourage you to participate. And when we came together as a group and started looking at what questions we would ask, we learned a lot, just on the, not only on the some of the obvious things, but also some that are not so obvious. And that's why we had, people that were psychologists involved, and the other side of Purdue, and why Behzad and Haley were so important, because we're asked to think a little bit deeper, right? And we come up with questions, we come up with all sorts of things that actually shape the surveys. So just as a tool to look at the opportunity of what it means to have to look at your culture objectively and where you think it needs to go, I think is hugely important. So with that, we'll open up to any questions. And yes, sir, Michael, do we have?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, great topic. Fernando knows me. For those you don't, I do a lot of collaborative contracting, industrial IPD advisory services. And behavior is a critical, collaborative behavior is a critical success factor. Assessing that collaborative behavior at the beginning, there's not a lot of tools out there. There are collaborative assessment tools, but they're for everything under the sun but industrial projects, right? So it's a much needed survey, and what we need as an industry is a tool to be able to assess your partners, the owner's team, with all a consistent set of parameters that allow those of us that has to advise them, who's going to work on the team, who's going to not. And right now, it's really seat of the pants interviewing process and standard questions. And I think there's a real science opportunity and a research opportunity here. So more of a statement than a question.
Well, thank you. That was a good point. And you do need leadership, that's for sure. Nothing's going to happen without that, to see what the benefits. And I've had been able to work with some very bold people and that basically said, and I think it was a little alluded to here earlier, but stood in front of the crowd and says, this project's going to be different. And this is how we're going to do this project. And if you don't want to be part of it, call me on my cell phone and I'll put you somewhere else. I'm not going to fire you or anything, but you know what? The people on this team have to work together, want to work together. And almost everybody, no one called them, right? And said, well, gee, if that's important, I better look at it. And that was one of the jobs, one of the projects that had a significant challenge in front of it. But then as soon as people knew they could work together, had to work together, we could look at production, we could look at material flows, we could look at all sorts of things a little differently, because guess what? We have a free slate to share our ideas and use of technology and process. It turned out very, very successful, and that EPC took that to other jobs. And when those jobs didn't go well because of the people, and part of the challenge is that we have a lot of new people coming into projects, all looking different directions, right? How do you align them, right? And how do you get them to march the same way? It is this level of effort, this level of leadership that has to take place. So, even when this same contractor I was telling you about that stood up there, knocked out of the park, goes to the next one, has a new project team, within a few months, or actually probably about maybe 6 months, it was a longer job, very complex job. They were on fire, right? Everything was going over, right? Because they had allowed things to get out of hand and not align the process. So they brought the process back in rather than throw more money at it and forcing everything. They said, okay, let's stop what we're doing, get a process in place like we did on the last big one, and everything started coming back in line. What was going to go over significantly, what was going to be over on cost and time, all of a sudden came back together. And then a year later, you go out to that job, and everybody, was aligned and was working collaboratively. They were having these production meetings all the time. In fact, another consultant came in and says, "You're having too many meetings," right? And said, "Well, that's how we actually get this production level up." So the fact is that some people just aren't used to understanding what culture you're trying to do and what behavior you're trying to change, because that's really what it's all about, and that's why. Collaborative relational contracts or partnerships and all that are trying to do, right? But after you shake those hands, what's next? How do you get the people to behave the right way? Any other questions? Yes, sir, Mick. Oh, another one before me.
Hi, Fernando. Zulhizan
Yes.
from Petronas. I agree. This is a very important subject and a very important element inside success of AWP. But knowing we all of us work through the full cycle of a project from definition all the way to execution, and we go through the motion of baton passing through all our contractors, and each contractor have a different agenda in the system. How do we actually define that culture in terms of selection of contractor, particularly in collaborative contracting? Because to me, AWP, for it to work, it has to be a full alignment with the win-win attitude in mind from the beginning. But if there are contractors, when you hire, they already have claim consultant on their side, I don't think that's a formula that will work. But at the same time, how do owners determine which contractor have the right culture in the beginning when you are at the definition stage? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the fact is, if you're going to be serious about changing, the culture or introducing something like AWP or lean or project production management, right? It does require behavior change. And when we've done this, before, there's several factors that really drive the success. One is, the people. You got to get the right people in place, and you got to get the right mindset. So, if you're going to go down this route, and you're going to have new contractors that are going to come in, you have to decide what is going to be important. Am I just going to bring on people that say that they're going to go do this, or they're going to, say, we'll work with you, and then they don't, right? So that's not a good way of doing it. So what we've seen that's worked successfully are two things. One is put together an education, training, and coaching program, because you're going to have to get out there and help people do this, right? Until you get experienced people that are helping shape new people coming on board, and they've been educated and trained what to expect, how they're going to participate. You might even have to give them the software to support that, right? Because the objective is not so much maybe for that project, but you're looking at it from an organizational change perspective, right? If I have to bring my supply chain into this, I need to do it intentionally. So yes, education and training program and a coaching program is critical, because you are taking a bunch of people that have never done this before, and they need to become educated and they need to be supported, right? And so to at least get it to phase one. We're not going to knock it out of the ballpark for sure, but it does take a little bit of an investment. The other, part, of course, besides that is if we're gonna actually go do this properly, and put people in place, right? We need to constantly look at the program and what levels do we really want to get people out. What is possible? We can't do everything all at once. What we can say is let's get a small win. If we can get to this level, right, with this contractor, and give them this information, we can start seeing some benefits. But that takes a lot of commitment, right? And we have to not only, again, put people in place to do that. Sometimes you got to do it for them, right? If we're looking at a contractor that doesn't know anything, and you haven't really got the whole indoctrination or onboarding program in place, right? Which is essential. But it does take that. And yes, you can transform people that have never done it before. Some will just not want to do it. And you got to make a decision, like Shell said up there this morning. If you want to work on a Shell project, you're going to have to do this, right? And you have to do it well. Otherwise, we're just going to move on to the next person that wants to do that. And sometimes our choices are limited, but the fact is, and I'll give you a little story about Kazakhstan. And I don't know if any of you have been out working out there, but the culture there is very, very different, right? It's there's the rules are you have to hire a lot of local people, Kazakhs, and people of Russians that were there too. They've never done this, and sometimes you just have to look at, we got to get them on better project management skills. Let's get that, right? And then we started introducing, and one of the first things that we did that everybody got was just asking them simple questions. What are you doing tomorrow? Can you commit to something that you're going to do tomorrow? And as soon as we did that, and we go check and see, did you accomplish that, right? And then they'd start looking at it one day. They start getting excited about being able to plan. And they started sharing why they couldn't achieve what they said they were going to do the next day. And then they started looking a day, one day at a time. They started discovering, well, this guy keeps pulling my people. It's just very simple things, right? So the fact is, if we can learn to see what the problem is and help people move along in whatever the most basic issue is, you either can accept the fact that it is what it is and you're going to get what you get because I can't train people or I can't educate them this, or you can say, well, I need to make certain things happen because it's a benefit to the project. What is it going to go take to get those results? Yes, it may cost me a little bit of money, but it's going to be a heck of a lot less if you just wait until the end of the dust settles, you're a year behind schedule, and you've got to decide, who's going to pay that cost or what revenue you lost, right? And that's the reality. That's always that trade-off. They're uncomfortable decisions, but if you really want to accomplish this with people that are contractors, especially that come out, you got to put a plan in place, right? And then you got to enforce that plan. You got to put the resources against that plan. Great question. Hopefully I answered it. Is that okay? All right. Any other questions? Mick.
Thank you for the presentation. It's a great topic and then very deep, I guess. So I have a very simple question. Does CII define AWP culture? Because AWP looks like, to me, is a methodology. And so obviously there's something to do with culture. I mean, RT 390 actually described the culture change in the book. But then this research team is really focusing on the culture and behavior really straight. So I want to know whether you're talking about you need some culture change to achieve AWP, or you want to define AWP culture itself.
That's another good question. So the answer is a little bit of both, right? Because whatever you're going to do, whatever project delivery system that you're going to put in place, right? If you want people to follow it, right, or you want your project teams to follow it, you're going to have to align them, right? And you're going to have to say, well, this is what we're going to accomplish, and I want to see the behaviors support that. Now, from an ADP perspective, yes, we wrote a paper, Mr. Gerbrecht, and that's accessible to everybody, and it describes what an ADP culture should look like, right? It's collaborative. It's people are aligned. They're working together. All these important factors. There was a bunch. I can't remember them all, but we are looking at the behaviors to support an ADP environment, right? And we want AWP to say, well, these are the expected behaviors. We want you to all have a work packaging mentality. Use a work packaging language, right? Work collectively together. Make collective decisions on CDP releases and IDP releases, right? Why aren't we doing that, right? Because, the culture hasn't quite shifted. Some people do it very well, right? Hold collective discussions, and others say, well, I'm determining that my IDP is constraint-free because I checked the boxes off, and that's good enough, right? We didn't look deeper. So, what are we trying to achieve? So yes, we need a culture that supports change in methodologies, absolutely. And we want the methodology itself to be supported by having people to understand it and behave in a way that supports AWP. Or if it's going to be lean, or if it's going to be project production management, or it's going to understanding the rules of IPD, right? That's what we need to generate. And we need to educate anybody coming onto a project that this is how we behave, right? No one goes onto a project anymore without seeing a safety video, right? We may need to inform people on how we're going to run an ADP program or whatever the project delivery execution plan is. All right, great.
Yes, to just, I have a microphone, thank you so much. So to just...
It's not on.
Oh, it's not on.
Okay, it's on now.
It's on now. Thank you so much. Thank you. Great question. And these dimensions were identified by our colleague Frankie Kong from Department of Psychology. So based on the theories that they have, they can define what are the dimensions that a culture should have, a successful culture to achieve our goals. And they came up with these dimensions, and we've worked with the team under leadership of Fernando and other colleagues to define different metrics that can tell us how we are doing well or bad in those cultural dimensions. So we can say that we didn't identify AWP culture, we identified dimensions that can help us to be more successful. And so we came up with the 5 levels that can tell us how well we are doing on different, on each of these dimensions. And we had more than 17 metrics, as you can see here. And so people can assess their projects, how well we are doing regarding the culture, which area we need to improve in our project.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is one of the objectives is to create high-performance teams, right? And it's like all the different football teams, right? They're all running off different playbooks, but they need to work together. So, in this case, we want an ADP playbook or whatever that project delivery system is. So how do we leverage all these good things about a culture to help support advanced work packaging? Or just get a much more productive culture and alignment, right? So when people go to these programs, any program, any project, they are again, it's behaving the way that we would like them to behave to be productive, right? Because if my culture is me, and I want to do what's best for my company, and I'm not going to worry about the project, that's somebody else's problem, right? That's not kind of the culture we want, right? Is how do we get win-win situations and not win-lose or lose-lose, right? It just takes people all focused and looking in the same direction. So yeah, I learned quite a bit. I mean, I didn't know anything about bars and all that when I started this. It's just interesting to see how you can view the world through a different lens. All right. Jamie. Oh, do we have a question over here? Why don't we? Yes. Okay, yeah,
Sorry, Wally Mathiasen. What contracting strategy lends itself best to AWP adoption? EP and then C, or EPC, or EPCM?
Well, that's a good question. Right now, it's set up for success, really owner-driven, like the Shell, Exxon, EPCs, EPCMs, right? Get on board. And they got to get aligned through contracts and contracting strategies and all that, so they can bring on either direct work or contracting work, at the end of the day. But I think it's going to change in the future a little bit because more and more teams, especially with the technologies being used for these projects in the first place, right? There's few people and organizations that really can do it. So you're going to create these strong partnerships. It's getting down below, the handshake again on how we want the big EPCs and EPCMs to actually behave and share data and be part of a broader project objective. Not saying that we're bad, but that there is so much that you see when you start looking for it that, gosh, we have a lot of area of improvement. But right now it's set up for AWP is really an owner EPC, EPCM kind of structure. And whether you do it, cost plus or whether you do it lump sum, as long as you got the contract requirements in place and you have proactive engagement from the owner, we'll find a lot of benefits can be achieved. So, Jamie?
Thanks. So I'd like to first just thank the leaders of the research team for what they've been able to share today and all the work that they've accomplished and what they look ahead to accomplishing. Thanks for encouraging others to participate in providing insights that will bring about the culmination of the effort and the outcomes that can be beneficial to all of us. I wanted to go back to one of the questions. I think the conversation has been excellent, the questions and answers. And I think on that question about how owners will have that opportunity to sort of assess or get a sense for the culture of potential
other organizations that can work with them, and vice versa, how contractors may be able to sense the culture of the owners around AWP, and just across those possible arrangements of companies coming together to plan and execute projects. I can see that the outcomes from the research team will help us to be able to see what are some of the particulars that are important to culture that we can then all take on board as we interact with potential companies to join on a project, and we really try to get that understanding of whether those cultures look like they're going to be really supportive to the AWP application. So I look forward to those results because I think it'll help address that important element of what we look to do as we go forward to bring together multiple entities that it takes, particularly to work the very large projects. One question, we saw the one page that represented how there's the culture of a project team, of a department, of an organization or a company. And I'm just curious as to whether the team, and also I guess when you have a culture and you're looking to make adjustments or changes for improvement, maybe there's an ongoing aspect of energy that has to continue to be poured in, maybe particularly early on, as you might have a project team that accomplishes the culture, but maybe not the full department, maybe not ultimately the company, but you work to progress that. Will the research team be picking up on that side of, hey, what does it take to sustain a culture to the extent that it needs to sustain until it's time for some further adjustment?
I hope so. I think it's always a topic that comes out of the survey on what may or may not be supporting the advancement of any project or AWP or some of that culture. But you're bringing up an important point where this has to go next, right? I think we're going to find that yes, we can evaluate our own cultures, our organizational cultures. How does one department work from another, and what is that project culture, which I think is the ultimate goal here, is that if the project culture is just going to be a culmination of all the individual organizations that come to it, you're going to get something kind of like the individual chaos kind of model, is that you really don't know. Technology brings it a little bit better together. But a lot of organizations and a lot of the major organizations that are here, at this conference spend a lot of time educating and training the organizations that are going to work on their jobs, right? Again, when they've reached the point where they understand it and they're not afraid to look at failures as, hey, it didn't work, because that's what the mentality was 20 years ago. Well, I tried, it didn't work. All right. The fact is they didn't have the vision saying, well, I need to make it work because we are having these serious issues, and if I get people to behave this way and I get these results, why wouldn't I pursue it? So, the fact is, how do we make all these cultures come together in a way, and how do we start looking at a dedicated supply chain, right? And a lot of manufacturing companies do this that are really good at this, right? They only go to a few suppliers and say, if we can work together, we'll keep delivering this, and until you don't deliver, then we'll here's our target cost, here's our target everything, and we'll keep number two in line all the time. I'm not saying that's what we do, but if we're not going to look for those organizations that really want to go do this and just always open it up to anybody and look for the lowest cost, right, and not alignment in our project delivery program, we're always going to get these kind of problems. So, the fact is, how do we align the supply chain? I think that's the next one that's going to come out. So, yes, we see it today. We want to really know more about it. How does each organization, I know how some of them do, go out to their supply chain, educate and train them before they can get on a job, right? And then even knowing that they're on the job, the level of support that's going to be needed to carry them through, right? Because we don't want to just scratch them off, they didn't participate. Well, we didn't put the effort. We just said, you figure it out, right? So part of the culture is one to be a learning culture, right? How do we basically generate interest in wanting to know more, and how do we support that, right? And have people learn, set aside some time to get more involved. And that's a different culture, right? You're all here. You know, the reason you're here is you want to learn. What if everybody had that opportunity, right? I'm sure they're interested in this too, but they just don't get invited, right? We have to make it accessible, you know. All right. I think we're getting close. Any other questions that we can answer? I think we've got 3 minutes, and I'm pretty sure everybody needs to get on to I think there's a breakout, or maybe there's a break after this.
Yes, and just my last request, if it's possible, please help us with the data collection. And Haley did a great job with preparing all of these things, the videos, the distributions, participating in the research study, and doing all of the literature review, preparations. So there are lots of work and effort goes into this data collection. And Haley is a rising star. By participating in this study, you will help her a lot. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. And with that, unless there's anything else, let you get on to the next event, which I'm not sure what it is. You know,
Thank you.
We got another breakout in that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.